Botswana, a peaceful country deep in the south of Africa, whose charm lies in its countless elephant, zebra, giraffe, antelope, wildebeest, and buffalo. The country boasts one of the largest inland river deltas in the world, the Okavango Delta, which regularly spills over an area of nearly 15,000 square kilometers after the summer rains. Most of the country is covered by the Kalahari Desert. The rest is semi-desert, bush, and deciduous forest. The majority ethnic group, the Swana, live in a stable, democratic society. They are a kind, smiling, and hard-working people who are in no hurry to get anywhere. Most of our expedition is made up of Salesian collaborators. So it seemed only natural that we should try to find the Salesians in Botswana. We were very surprised to find that the Salesians only came to Botswana at the end of 2023. Pater Tembe said that they have nothing, and they are even borrowing things for the service. We started a collection right away. For example, a chalice used by Johnny Komarek, the provincial of the Salesians, ended up in our luggage. This was a broken chalice, so I cleaned it with silver and epoxied a brass curtain ring to it, which I also polished. Our meeting with the Salesians was completely natural.
Bind us together, Lord, bind us together.
Like between old friends after months of correspondence. Paul Nganda, a young Salesian with a radiant smile, immediately spontaneously dressed himself in a new chasuble and celebrated a joyful service with the parishioners. The impromptu discussion that followed was just as natural. It culminated in a heartfelt statement by one of the women present. Sylvester, can I also be a collaborator of Don Bosco?
There is only one body, that is why.
The brothers showed us the donated land, where they are planning a community house, an oratory, and a chapel, and a lighted playground, so that the work with the youth can continue even in the early twilight. Brother Sylvester adds that they are very concerned about passing on the values of the Christian way of life to the youth. We began to understand how important this is in the present situation, and how much we want to help them.
The mission why we came, Director Major asked us to come here to open because was the only place in Southern Africa where the Salesians were not here. And our mission is to spread the works of Don Bosco also here in Botswana. Our target is young people here in Botswana because we, as Salesians, we would like to work with the young people here. So far what we have seen that there is too much of young people drinking, for example, alcohol. You as cooperators from Czech Republic, you can help us in our mission. Maybe if you happen to find something which we can use for the young people, such, for example, like sports kits or books or anything which we can improve towards this work of working with the young people.
We went to Botswana in June. It is the end of autumn, and we are heading north to the border with Zimbabwe in pleasant weather. We want to see Victoria Falls for ourselves. The Zambezi River is full of water after the rainy season, so the sight of the 120-meter high falls is monumental. Czech traveler Emil Holub was the first to make a map of them. The two Toyota Hiluxes have, without exaggeration, become our home of observation and safety for a time. The equipment allowed us to cook, keep supplies cool, and magically transform the campsite into a cozy place for evening discussions.
Mount, to je myslím 140 a pak ještě z Mount nahoru do Mababe a to je další 120. To mi přijde, že není prostě...
Na druhou stranu můžeme jít vlastně do...
Conversely, even here on Earth, we are to deploy ourselves for every good work, but we are to do it in the spirit and power of Christ, and not expect or promise paradise on earth. Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. So that the roads may be safe, we'll just go quickly to arrange for tomorrow. The need to conserve the water in the tanks encouraged our mutual consideration. Double diesel tanks allowed us to travel long distances away from civilization. Driving there requires courage and quick decision-making, possibly even the need to collect unpleasant experiences. We now know that a lot of deep sand can be driven through, but in the morning, while it is damp with dew. You may be surprised to know that we have been driving all this time using only the ascczech.cz app, which admirably knows even the smallest of Botswana's hardships. It seems to be settling in so nicely at this point that by the time we pop out in the evening, knowing that in 20 minutes it's going to be pitch black, because here the dusk actually comes like a snap of a finger, just as everyone knows what to do, we're off running. The Salesians don't have a priest here yet, due to various peripecias, processing permits and such. They have a borrowed priest, and he is a very young Salesian from the next province. And his smile, just his smile was amazing.
Prostě jeho úsměv byl úžasný. Občas člověk, když je v tom svým domově, tak od lidí slýchal takový otázky.
Sometimes when you're in that home, you get questions from people like, "And aren't you afraid you're going to get eaten by a lion? Or aren't you afraid that if you camp there that someone will rob you around every corner?" I can see that the power of the negative news around the world is awfully great, and that when you're just getting there, yes, not that the negative stuff isn't there, but that percentage suddenly dissolves.
To procento je najednou, to se rozpustí.
As we travel through the surprisingly arid Okavango Delta, the extreme drought of recent years to blame, we arrive at the fishing village of Dechipa. We stop and chat with the locals. They invite us to tour their traditional dwellings. A high enclosure of reeds protects them from predators. We learn that they plaster the walls with material from termite mounds, of which there are many in Botswana. We leave civilization behind and head into a wild landscape full of large animals. The Linienty River is a border stream with Namibia, where only wild animals live on the vast land. In the morning, we observe a mesmerizing crowd of several hundred black Kaffir buffalo returning to the forests. Near our campsite is a large pool occupied by amphibious hippos. They seem blissful, nudging and grunting a little at times. The wetlands, of course, attract several species of antelope for food and water. They've got red knots, well adapted to life in the wetlands. Chakma baboons and hog-nosed warthogs also regularly seek sustenance here. We knew one of the most beautiful constellations in the night sky, the constellation of Scorpio, which you can never see in its entirety in Bohemia. And, of course, the Southern Cross.
A neměla jsem vůbec strach jako z těch zvířat. Samozřejmě asi.
I wasn't scared of the animals at all, of course. I guess if I violated that kind of zone, it could become dangerous. I didn't go into that, of course, but I was still in the immediate vicinity, like the rest of us. And somehow I felt like I was a part of that. That kind of belonging permeated me, and there was just a fascination that I could just let it affect me for hours and watch.
Že jsem dokázala jako hodiny jenom to nechat na sebe působit a dívat se.
Moremi Game Reserve is part of the Okavango Delta. And as its name suggests, it was originally a hunting area, which now protects game. Saddle-billed storks are one of the most massive and brightly colored wading birds. Griffon macaws are imposing ungulates that like to gather in herds. The wildebeest make use of the zebra's keen senses, especially their sense of smell. The African unhinga perches on the back of a resting hippo after the hunt is over. The massive opening of the hippo's mouth is a clear warning to anyone who comes near it.
Vlastně na rozdíl od ostatních zvířat.
Unlike the other animals we've seen here, the elephants were always doing something. And with the elephants, all you had to do was watch the way they walked, the way they carried themselves with dignity and slowness, but in such a nice, dignified way. I'm actually a little sad that there aren't people in Europe as open-minded as there are here. That actually this openness and friendliness, the fact that a stranger comes up to you and asks how you are for something.
A přátelskost, to, že k tobě přijde neznámý člověk a první, co se zeptá, jak se máš.
At the northeastern edge of the Okavango Delta flows the Kwaji River. It brings life-giving water to the coastal lowlands. We see many species of wading birds, sacred ibises, collared kingfishers, hammerheads, and African zebra finches. Wherever we are near flowing waters, golden eagles accompany us. At one point, we observe large animals fleeing the open landscape. What happened? Nearby, 2 lionesses were moving upwind. The fisherman we met the next day explained it to us. We marvel at the gracefulness of these beasts as they walk along the other side of the river, less than 30 meters from us. Although hippos may strike us as inactive or lazy creatures, they are very bright and dangerous herbivores during their nocturnal activity. Botswana is home to nearly a third of the total African elephant population, about 130,000. Elephant families are made up of several adult females who are related, and usually the most experienced one leads the group. Each female elephant nurses and raises her young. Adolescent males leave their family when they reach 15 years of age. I thought it was great that we did well together, I think. It was great to have people of different backgrounds and experiences. So it was enriching for me to have someone talk about what they do, for example, in the evening. Incredible amount of animals. And yet the animals were incredibly close. I didn't expect that. I was surprised in this when we were driving from Nata to Mon, just between 2 salt pans like that, and there was a huge herd of elephants just off the road. Normally we'd be driving and they were like on the edge. But I love how open they were, how they were always smiling at us. Actually, that white smile on a dark face is beautiful. They were really nice. They were really nice to me when they waved at us even somewhere, like they were happy to say hello, and it wasn't like they were running around begging for money, which I guess sometimes people have this idea of Africa. Baobabs are giant organisms, land whales that resemble them in their proportions. Their bark is a pleasant pinkish shade, with fine pores similar to human skin.
Baobab fruits, rich in vitamin C, calcium,
The Botswana Nature Conservancy helps large populations of ungulates and other wild creatures, especially in times of drought. These are man-made watering holes, drilled into the water table. Such watering holes are used by wildlife on the bottom of the dry Botet River. There are quite a few crocodiles in the watering holes. They are a threat not only to antelope and zebra, but also to baby elephants. We watch as the adult elephants are careful not to baby elephants don't get near a crocodile. At another watering hole, we observe zebras often threatened with being pulled underwater by a larger crocodile. Meerkats are well-known social carnivores. A group of meerkats has 30 or more individuals that excel in their reputed hind leg patrolling.
And that also depends with the mentality that they, like the big animals that we saw here today on the Botewa River, the elephant ones and the hippos, they also have a different dimension of time. And those local people, it seems to me, have that too. I was expecting it to be like really water in that Okavango Delta, that there would be huge hundreds of square kilometers flooded should the floods peak at this time. And we were actually driving there completely through an arid landscape where there were residual small streams. So that's probably the thing that surprised me the most.
On the way from Mahuna, we met a man who was steadily cutting down an acacia tree the next day. He filled us with peace through his smile. We also visited a small protected area where it's rare to see the blunt-nosed rhino. We settled quietly in the observation room and gradually watched as first several species of antelope, the greater kudu, impala, and jumping antelope came in. Eventually, Africa's largest species, the elk antelope, also came in. And then comes the warthog family. Finally, the two majestic rhinoceroses show up.
To bylo úžasné. Já si myslím, že všichni řidiči, kteří jsme tady řídili, že jsme si na ten terén zvykli a že nám to nedělalo ale vůbec žádný potíže.
This was amazing. I think all of us drivers that were driving here, we got used to the terrain. It didn't give us any trouble at all. And the fact that we fit in, I'm glad we did, because it showed that the terrain was really tough and that we're good at setting it up. Although I don't think it was that hard, it was more the initial inexperience before we really felt the terrain and before it became clear what it needed and how we should treat the terrain in the car. I enjoyed it. Concentrating on that ride, I saw a lot of things, like a tit, that nobody saw, because I was concentrating, and my thoughts were just fixed on the terrain. All of us, all 9 of us, we lost those unnecessary fears. And we acted perfectly naturally, although I think we were being prudent, that we weren't taking unnecessary risks, that it was working, that it had no mistakes. I was worried at home that maybe there would be a submarine or something like that. In 3 weeks here, nothing like that has happened. I'm sure we prayed, and that corporate spirit and that divine protection was exercised here.
Jsem si jistý, že jsme se modlili a že teda ten společný duch a ta boží ochrana tady se uplatňovala, jo.
Gane maisia yone ka gore khulu ga itira banna gane na maya yone khomo masika mewe zala tsamewe a gone go thoka hala
Rara, remorwa, remoya, obuisepo. Amen. Samaya kakeso. Elemoha unjino.
Nakoyame yorobile. Jano kenakoyame we. Yakena koyamunyenyo we. Koke santenwe, yemewe, lekere le ratsabela vanzemeliko, kamalinga kwana, nevosamoto. Wanakeworoha, yetaka wapaki, nakeworoha.